Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 14 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today by none other than my regular weekly co-host and stand-in guest, AWS Cloud Engineer John Goodall. There we go. That's the longest one I've done for a while, John. I think. How
and
do
you
feel
still
about
got the
that?
job title wrong.
Did I? Lead
Yes.
AWS Cloud Engineer.
It's just lead cloud engineer. AWS is not in my job title.
I'm getting confused with the other AWS Cloud engineers that we have. You'd think I would know our org chart inside out, being the CEO, wouldn't you? But there we are.
And that we're a team of not that many people.
Yeah, I know. There's not that many job titles to remember either, is there? But at least I remember mine. That's the main thing. I remember my job title. So
Chief Potwash.
Indeed. So your internet's back up now, John, after what was rather a stressful day for you.
Yeah, that's been a bit of a mare. It was, that was fun. It was fine. It was fine. Quarter to 10, dead. And I'm thinking, I've got a slightly over-engineered network anyway, as you thought of expect. So I'm thinking, is it some of my kit? No. Start going to get the cable testers. It's not the cables. Let's just plug the old router in from the ISP. Plug that in. Oh, that's not working either. Okay, support case. And from there, I was very impressed with them. And I'm not going to name them because they're not paying me, but it was, support bot. Yes, 20 minutes later. Yeah, there's a problem. It should be back on by 3:45, and back 3:45, it came back on. But yes, I've been fumbling along on hotspots and things all day.
Well, I'm glad you're impressed with them as you're about to sign a new 2-year contract for an upgrade. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did that because I'm still 4 months from the end of my current one, and I could go to full fiber, 900 meg or something silly, early if I stayed with them. It's like, yeah, okay.
Fair enough. Well, let's hope that new service is more reliable than the old one. Although, to be fair, it's been pretty reliable, hasn't it? So
yeah, this is the first major problem I've had in about 4 or 5 years. So
there we go. Not a bad record. Anyway, we must introduce today's special guest on Logicast. We're joined today by our very first guest from Tunisia, Ayman Tangara. How are you doing today, Ayman?
I'm doing fine, Carl.
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ayman, what you do for a living and your interest in AWS.
Yeah, so my name is Tangara Ayman. I'm currently a student at TCAP University, where I'm pursuing my software engineering major. I'm originally from Tunisia, and I've been passionate about cloud and DevOps for quite a while, since the first year that I entered the university. So, and it's been like a snowball from there, like 3 or 4 years from there. And I've been practically using AWS at least 2 or 3 times a week. Now, practically it's every day.
Well, I'm loving your proactivity. I'm going to have to show this to my son who's about to start university. And I keep telling him that he needs to be doing lots of things outside of the university curriculum to be able to compete in the market. This is a great example of what other people in the market are up against. So I admire your dedication and your passion. Yeah.
I just spent all my time in the pub.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did at university as well. That was English universities in the 90s. I think times have changed. I think lots of students don't even know what a pub is these days. So.
There was a great little pub down the road from my university called the Lecton, which I thought was just spot on naming for a university pub. It was
marketing to get people in there. Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the misspent youth of British university students. Where we are here to talk about AWS news. So as regular listeners to the podcast will know, once a week I curate a list of AWS news I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John and I pick a selection of those news articles that we'd like to talk about with our guests. So we do, of course, have such a selection of articles to talk about this week. And the first one, not so much of an article, more of a feature announcement from AWS. But CloudWatch is getting more love. And this one is all about CloudWatch application signals. The title is Monitor Service Dependencies with Amazon CloudWatch Application Signals, SLOs. So that's a fairly new acronym, I think, for the podcast. We may have spoken about it once or twice in the past. SLOs, of course, standing for service level objectives. So objectives you can set for your service levels, believe it or not. So if you have ever
Hold the
read,
phone while I get back up off the floor because I just fell off my chair.
if anybody's ever read the SRE book, which is a collection of blog posts, I think, from Google, the O'Reilly SRE book, I started trying to read it, and it was quite turgid, I thought, but lots in there about SLOs. And obviously, this is now something you can monitor with CloudWatch. So what's good about this, John?
So I thought I'd just touch on this a little bit because you hear a lot about people, you hear a lot of people talk about SLAs and agreements and all that kind of jazz. And then unless you have read the SRE book or you're that way inclined, you probably don't know what goes underneath them. So there's a whole kind of stack of things that sits underneath an SLA. And an SLA is a service level agreement, and that's we will maintain at this level of service. And almost every yes, quite. Unless you've read that book or you are an SRE or what have you, you probably have never heard of some of these terms, right? Everyone knows what an SLA is, but the term is used very, very badly and very wrong all the time. Like service providers saying we will enforce our SLA. Like that's not how that works. That's you provide, you don't enforce. That's not how that works. But the SLA is we will hit this level or there will be compensation, depending on what your contract says. SLO, it tends to be an internal metric, and it's not quite as good as the SLA, or rather, it's slightly better than the SLA, I should say. So if your SLA says 99% uptime, your SLO will probably be 99.5% uptime. And the idea there is you want to hit your objective, but you must hit your agreement, right? And if you don't hit your objective, well, it's not amazing, but there's no penalties for it. And that's kind of the idea here. And then underneath that is SLIs, which is service level indicators, which most people would call a metric. Effectively, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. Yeah. Why do you care about tracking SLOs? Well, for your own applications, you care because they're what roll up to your SLAs. And if you don't know how well you're performing, you don't know how well you're performing. Bit of a tautology there, right? You can't manage what you don't measure, as you like to say, Carl. And that's kind of what that is. Obviously, third-party people that you're working with, be that a SaaS application of some form, it might be an external database provider, it might be an external graph database provider because you're not using Neptune. It might be anything. It might be a payment processor. And they use payment processors in this example because that's one of the things that AWS doesn't do. They will have an SLA, and you can now set an internal SLO to track the performance of things like latency and faults and those are the examples that they use, and how that then feeds into your overall service. And they then say you can then use this to investigate the dependency. Okay, depending on what your agreement is with your provider, though, there's not a huge amount else you can do there, because if it's a SaaS service, if you're a Xero or a Stripe customer or whoever else you happen to use for payment processors, those are the only ones that come to mind, but I'm sure others exist. As far as I understand it, unless you're sending huge amounts of money through them, it's just, it'll be up, it's fine, it'll live. Here's the SLA and go pound sand territory. So the usefulness of this is not so much that you can go, there's the problem, I can go and fix it. It's, there's the problem, and my engineers can go back to bed because there's nothing we can do about it. So that's why this is interesting.
Yeah, engineers' sleep is always highest priority. I think
that should be an SLO.
Yeah, 8 hours.
Engineers sleep.
Engineer sleep SLO, 8 hours per night minimum. Yeah, not sure how you measure it. Maybe with an Apple Watch or something like that. But yeah. So what are your thoughts on this, Tangara?
So the thing is that I actually see here is that many startup companies are usually affected by this because they miss the importance of monitoring in this phase, and they say as long as it's working, I mean the application or their project, that's fine. But they don't know what if the objectives are actually done correctly or achieved or not. So let's talk about the key features that CloudWatch or AWS CloudWatch can bring to the table here. So according to the article of AWS, we have moved from the time or the periodic-based SLOs to the request-based SLOs. By this feature, we can actually track the performance at the granularity of individual requests. So here at worst, we can get a latency of 200 milliseconds, and we can get even less than 200 milliseconds. And this will offer a precise error budgeting compared to the time or the periodic based SLOs. And moreover, we can actually see that by using the CloudWatch application signals, we can assure some service dependency mapping, which can automatically generate a topology of map or a topology map of applications, let's say, and dependencies that can aid or help knowing the root cause of the problem. That makes an analysis for the problem, or after the monitoring is actually done. And finally, which is I think is more important, that in my case as a student I see is the most important thing, because many of us graduates go to establish some startups and they don't manage their accounts in AWS accurately. So here with this feature we can actually assure the cross-account observability by monitoring some multi-account environments, let's say, via CloudWatch, and access the management and centralize all the data in one dashboard, let's say. So a global advantage that I see or that I'm working on, which is the hybrid or multi-cloud environments. Here we can support multi-cloud workloads and integrate tools like CloudWatch to actually manage an end-to-end visibility to the users or the administrators, let's say.
It's an interesting point. It's another example of CloudWatch, as you say at the start, Carl, getting some love and becoming more and more of a tool that you want to use rather than using a third party. Because historically it was you had to use it for certain things because that's just where stuff went. And now it's becoming more and more of a, I actually want to use this because it does the things that I want and it's aggressively cheap.
Yeah, I think in the past you'd have gone Datadog or New Relic or any of those other third-party platforms, and CloudWatch is really starting to develop now to mirror a lot of the functionality of those third-party tools. And why use an expensive third-party tool if that functionality exists natively within AWS? So I haven't done any kind of direct kind of competitive analysis between CloudWatch in recent years and the third-party tools that I've mentioned. Other third-party tools are, of course, available, but it does seem with a lot of these new feature announcements that AWS is catching up in a lot of areas with CloudWatch and CloudWatch's application monitoring capabilities. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, on that note, let's move along to our second article for this week. This is another feature announcement, but moving into serverless. This is an announcement about the Step Functions SDK, and AWS has expanded the Step Functions SDK integrations with Amazon Backup Search and 137 additional APIs. John, I really hope you're not going to list all 137 additional APIs, because we could be here all day while you just literally name them one by one. But what was...
I don't even know what they are. I didn't even bother to look.
Well, one of them is Amazon Backup Search. I can tell you that because it's in the title. I don't know what the other 137 are, but what was it?
The short version,
about this one?
I mean, anything that comes to do with step functions, I want to talk about it because I like step functions. In previous roles, I spent a lot of time building them. And as we've spoken about several times on the pod and kind of in our meta pieces around this as well, we run our recordings through one to do a whole bunch of AI and transcription and bits and pieces like that, right? So I like a step function. I'm generally a fan of orchestration rather than choreography in terms of serverless development, serverless workflows, because they're easier to debug. I find they make more sense. You get this nice, pretty picture, and you can sell that to a stakeholder really easily because it's, what are you building? Have a picture. There you go. I'm building that. It makes your life a lot easier, right? Because you can just sort of go,
Yeah.
bosh.
I do like
That's
a
great.
picture.
You do. You see, I know my audience. I'm selling to an executive. The executive wants a picture. Here's the thing.
Do you like a picture, Tangara? Do you draw lots of pictures in your course at the moment? Do you like a diagram, a schematic?
Yes, actually enjoying being a solution architect in my workspace and outside my workspace. It's actually one of my favorite things that sometimes I get like a bit let's say I'm not really fond of people who miss like simple alignment in the architecture. so I get, no, you have to do this. They have to be like a parallel. They need to do like this. It just
Oh, I
makes
remember at
the
university
impression
when it was,
better
if you
for
cross your
the
lines, I'm taking points off
yeah.
of you. Make sure your lines aren't crossing and the little
Well,
bridges.
you can cross a line as
Yes,
long as you've got a little,
You got a
a little
bridge.
bridge on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But the absolute,
the bridge.
the cardinal sin, of course, is using not current versions of AWS service icons, which everybody knows I absolutely detest. You can download the latest versions. There's no excuse for using
Right.
legacy icon versions.
It's a pain in the backside. All the free tools have them wrong. So I've actually gone and off my own money paid for Lucidchart because it's correct and I don't have to think about this anymore.
Is that because I pointed it out to you so many times and you got fed up of it?
Yes, and I just went, I'm spending some money to solve this problem.
Anyway, we digress. Sorry, John, I interrupted you there so we could talk about pictures because we like pictures.
Yeah, so I mean, this particular integration, so the 137 odd additional APIs, but none of them will be earth shattering or that have called them out specifically, right? It's just, it's things like additional services that they already support, and you can just do more things with the direct integration, right? Because every single service out there has an API with dozens and dozens and dozens of endpoints. So they'll just added some endpoints. Cool. If you care, go look at the documentation. Wonderful. This particular backup integration is quite interesting to me because now you can orchestrate backup discovery and management directly without writing additional code. Why is that useful? Well, until managed restore testing in AWS Backup was a thing, you would have had to do something like this yourself anyway. And you'd have to write huge amounts of Lambda code to go and look through backup and paginate the results and, and all the rest of it. And now lots of that is done for you twice because now there's managed restore testing and this now integrates into step functions directly. Maybe this is just something that they had to build to get managed restore testing to work. And they've just gone, everyone can have it. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on this, Tangara?
Well, actually, I always try to analyze articles in a specific way. Is what are the key features, what are the advantages, and what are the drawbacks of each service or each additional feature or a new service, let's say. So if we keep up of what AWS is giving to us, the new APIs, they are like used in backup source, let's say, and Bedrock and Media Convert. So this this range of APIs makes new possibilities for the new users to actually innovate and not rely only on Lambda functions, as John said. So what we need to do here is to grasp every opportunity or every feature and try to use it when we need it. So here was what I see from the new 170, let's say 78 additional APIs with the Amazon Backup Search is a simplified architecture and orchestration. Let's say we have like, as it said, we have 14,000 AWS APIs that are natively there from 220 AWS services. So we can build like a big we have a big bowl of spaghetti, but we just need to know what to take from. So here we can actually, if we are really we know our stuff, we can scale cost effectively for distributed applications, and especially for backup and AI workflows. And finally, for the drawbacks, actually, if you think about it.
Oh, I think we may have lost Tangara there.
I can cover the drawbacks. It does make the step functions less testable. It does make them less testable because testing around step functions is hard. It always has been. And until they kind of sort that problem, it's not something that you're going to get better with more direct SDK integrations.
Cool. Okay. I think we will get Tangara back in a moment. But in the meantime, I think we should skip along to our next article for this week, which is all about Amazon Bedrock Guardrails and how Bedrock Guardrails has announced the general availability of industry-leading image content filters. And I had a little anecdote about this one. It's not about Bedrock, just about content filters, which I thought was quite amusing. It was actually Google, this particular content filter. And there was a picture of our colleague, Mark, sitting in a meeting room, holding his hand like this.
Careful, we're going to get banned.
For listeners, it's forefinger and middle finger extended and thumb in the air in a kind of a cowboys and Indians pistol style way. Hi, Eamon. Sorry, we lost you. Hi, Tangara. Sorry, we lost you there for a moment. We've moved on to the next article about Bedrock Guardrails. So I was just telling a little story about my colleague holding his hands up like this, and Google had basically banned it from Google Ads because it thought it was he was holding a weapon. So whilst this technology could become very useful, I think it's also got a little bit of a way to go in terms of actually identifying what is harmful content and what is not. It was literally just, he wasn't even making that, he just happened to be holding his hand in that sort of position. He clearly wasn't, he wasn't threatening to shoot the person that was.
Hello again.
Hey, Tangara. So we just carried on with the next article. We lost you there for a moment, connectivity-wise. So we're now talking about Bedrock Guardrails announcing the general availability of industry-leading image content filters. And I was just telling John a little anecdote about a content filter fail. It was nothing to do with Amazon. It was to do with Google. But let's move on from that. And John, what are your thoughts on these content filters and how they could?
Actually, I can't hear you well. I don't know if it's my connection or.
Yeah, we can still hear you. We'll press on.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Tangara. Yeah.
It's a fun false positive. That is, it's a fun false positive. This is an interesting one. So, image content filters isn't new to AWS, believe it or not. They've been doing this for a while now with one of their other pre-Bedrock AI services. Right, Bedrock gets all the love in creation, but they've been doing AI and junk for a while now, and the service that does this now and did this before is recognition, which you spell with a K rather than a C, but otherwise it's you spell it how you think you do, and that's great. It works really well. Here's my image, which is in an S3 bucket, or I've encoded it into bytes and then base64 encoded it, and I've sent it off. Great, wonderful. That works. This is interesting, though, because it's doing more than just that. Because what that was doing was the, are you holding a weapon? Is there any adult content, let's say? Is there anything that looks dangerous? And then it would do a whole bunch of other image classification stuff as well. So that's not new. What's interesting is it's done it through a guardrail, and it's done it in addition to things like blocking particular words. So if you don't want profanity in your content, it can block that. Personal data, or PII, and using more context to say that actually no, this image, because there's a famous one, and I forget where, but it was from the Vietnam War of all places, of that little girl running away from some nasty thing going on in the background, and Facebook, I think it was Facebook, had banned it for nudity because clothes had been singed or wasn't wearing any or something like that. And it was, no, this is historical context. So I just want to see if this sort of thing does a lot better with that kind of element than stuff has been done before. But obviously, this is not new ground. This is not new ground, and this is stuff that's going to keep being innovated and keep being worked on again and again and again. And the only gripe I have, before you ask, I do have a gripe, is it's still only available in 4 regions, 2 in the US, Frankfurt and Tokyo.
Well, at least one of them is in Europe this time round. So there we go. Tangara, do we have you now back online after that little blip there?
Yeah. I'm
Cool.
sorry for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I see that you have went to the third article of Bedrock and Guardrails.
Yeah.
Well, the content moderation that Amazon Bedrock offers to filter the harmful and unsafe image content using the automated reasoning checks can be very beneficial to actually restrict the amount of unsafe images or unsafe violent media to a certain audience, like children or kids, or maybe they are on social media without consent of their parents, or they're just scrolling. They just got their parents' phones, and so yes, that can be really beneficial, and it can mitigate the risks of let's say generative AI applications from generating even more inappropriate image generation, let's say.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to be able to ask an AI. You don't want a kid asking an AI to say, "Create me a picture of this explicit thing."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The thing that's not called out in this announcement, because it says up to 88% of harmful multimodal content, heavy lifting, building safeguards, or manual content moderation that can be error prone and tedious, and depending on the content you're moderating, can be actively trauma inducing. It's a horrible thing to have to do if you're dealing with large amounts of user generated content, and that's why this is so important.
Yeah, exactly. Which actually sometimes may require a bit of fine tuning for the generative AI applications that use foundational models. You can actually limit and fine tune the model and like overblock the legitimate content, so it can like limit the risk of having inappropriate media generation, for example.
But I think my anecdote was about overblocking, really. Picking up you missed it, Tangara, but it was a photo of a colleague of mine in a meeting, just gesturing like that, and the content was blocked by Google filters because it said he had a weapon. He was just gesturing. So that would be an example of overblocking, I think.
Exactly.
But perhaps I think the more these things are used, the better tuned that they will get, and the less risk of that there will be. But there we go. It's now generally available on Amazon Bedrock. On that note, let's move along to our fourth article for this week. We're back on the subject of
things are generally available.
Leaky buckets are generally available. They have been for quite some time. So I can't remember who it was that we spoke to recently. We had a guest on the podcast that said, "I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of this now." And
Johannes,
was Johannes, was it? Yeah, and his prediction has come true because every week
3 in a row now.
Three episodes in a row we've had a leaky bucket to talk about. Although I had noticed that this one's in Australia and last week's was in Australia as well, so I don't know if there's more leaky buckets in Australia than anywhere else in the world, or if just the Australian press have caught up with these particular
Nothing
issues.
else interesting's happening, is there?
But this is an article on securitymagazine.com about 27,000 records in an Australian fintech database being exposed by a leaky S3 bucket. So Tangara, I'll come to you first on this one. What are your thoughts on this particular article and on leaky buckets in general?
Well, actually, yesterday we had the AWS Community Day in Tunisia, and we had the opportunity to discuss a bit of this same article about the Australian company, and the fact that we have a leaky bucket without encryption, and which is publicly accessible to everyone, comes back to the first article of monitoring. That means that we didn't have the appropriate defensive tools, or let's say to protect and monitor our services and monitor our application. Let's say to make sure that everything is correctly provisioned. If we, like for example, used Trivy to check, for example, our infrastructure as code bucket provisioning, it will actually prevent this from happening. You see, that way we can have a very secure infrastructure and very secure architecture even before the incident to be to even happen or to be discovered. And after that, we can actually make some proactive measures, let's say to assure that we didn't make a mistake in securing our S3 buckets or our critical data for the company.
Cool. I think it might be my turn to have internet issues now. I notice. Am I coming through okay, John?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. I'm going to have to write a couple of horror films, aren't I? Is it Attack of the Leaky Buckets and Attack of the Bad Internet?
Yeah. I don't know if it's a coincidence that we're talking about leaky buckets as causing the internet to, maybe it's a new guardrail content filter that AWS don't want us talking about. But
It's going to be Attack of the Vibe Coders, isn't it? Because that's exactly what this is going to be all over again. It's nowadays, and we said this. I was really bullish about this probably a year ago now, basically saying that if you have data exposed in a bucket, it's your fault, because AWS have gone to enormous lengths now to make this something that you have to do intentionally. You have to jump through several hoops if you're doing things in the console to make this happen, right? Several hoops. You do have to jump through a couple of hoops still when you're doing it via IAC, but that's really trivial to do. And if you are vibe coding, and every time I say that, I want to throw up, but if you are using an AI assistant to do your coding for you, and of course, we all review all code that AI spits out, and we don't just copy and paste it straight in. You probably don't know what's gone on. You probably don't know all of the code that it's written, because if you have just used the tool to write the whole thing for you, which you could viably do now, which is terrifying, it's too much to look at. So this again, it's Attack of the Vibe Coders, and we're going to keep seeing this and keep seeing this and keep seeing this.
Yeah.
And it's good for me because I get to look at all big and clever in front of clients and say, no, I don't ever do that. I don't vibe code. I write all my own code myself. I'm old fashioned like that. And it's good for us because we get to talk about it on the podcast. But it's bad for everybody else. It's bad for everybody else. It's bad for the world, and people need to be better.
Oh, there we go. That's a pretty swooping statement there from John.
Do better.
Yeah, must do better. On that note, let's move on to our final article for this week, which is an article on the open source blog about AWS reaffirming their commitment to open source projects. I think in the past, AWS got quite a lot of abuse for taking open source projects and turning them into commercial services, which is really kind of against the spirit of open source. Since then,
it's not.
No, okay. Well, some people's opinion.
Been.
In some people's opinion, I think. In your purist opinion.
No, not in the slightest. It's the shtick that they always got was from people like Elastic and like Redis, who didn't like the fact that someone else was making money from their software.
And not contributing back.
And not contributing back enough. Yeah, that's fair.
So anyway, this is an article from the open source blog about how AWS has issued cloud credits, affirming their commitment. And the headline one, well, it's not in the headline actually, it's in the first paragraph. The one that they call out is the Kubernetes project. So they've extended an additional $3 million of annual credits to the Kubernetes project. So John, I know Kubernetes obviously is your favorite open source project, which is obviously why you've picked this article. So looking forward to hearing you waxing lyrical about Kubernetes once again.
Oh, I can't say my real thoughts will get banned. Cloud credits is an interesting one, and it feels to me like this is one of those internal budgetary reasons, because why not actual money? Why not just real money? Money is good. Cloud credits are fine. Amazon vouchers are more valuable than cloud credits, I find, but that's just me. I'm not an organization or a charity or what have you.
Yeah.
Real money is more valuable. $3 million in credit, wonderful. They'll spend them, right? The Kubernetes project will spend them. $3 million in dollars would go further, I think.
But we all know that $3 million in credits is not $3 million in dollars. So it's,
It's
I don't know
not.
what it actually is for Amazon. I'm sure somebody at Amazon does. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Tangara?
Actually, I'm a bit with John in this dollar and dollar real money and credit issue, because literally as students we have faced the same problem, even that we are not actually startup founders, but that's the objective one day. Having some credits, cloud credits, can be beneficial for everyone, but sometimes all you need, or what you need actually, is that proper money that you need to invest in different areas, between uh, uh, some of it in the cloud, some of it in other cases, and that way you can balance between different areas so that the project can go a long way. And what I see actually is that some incubators in our country actually do that to make the startup go a long way, more than 5 years, up to 10 years, so it can make a successful impact in the market. So that's it.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can't buy a sandwich with cloud credits, right? And here's the
Exactly.
rub. If you look at all of these software foundations, nobody's getting paid for any of this still, as far as I can work out. Nobody's getting paid for being a whatever for the Kubernetes, this, that, or the
Yeah.
other, because there's so many different teams of Kubernetes. But they call out a couple of others. They call out Let's Encrypt. They talk about the Python Software Foundation, a couple of other bits in the article as well. All of these people that are working on all of these things will have a job, right? They will have an employer of record, and that employer of record may be quite happy to pay their salary for them to contribute a large percentage or a small percentage of their time to this project. Wonderful. That's very generous of them. And the cloud credits help enormously, because it means they don't have to find money to run their infrastructure, run their testing, and all this jazz. Wonderful. I like that very much. I'd very much like the open source, and maybe this is me being a bit naive and a bit of a dreamer, but I'd very much like people working on open source to be able to just work on open source and not have to worry about, getting their bills paid some other way. I'd love them to be able to just do that. You see this a little bit in the smaller communities where people have got Patreons and that kind of thing, and then they'll live stream coding on Twitch or what have you, which is another Amazon brand, by the way. And that's how they pay their bills. So they are full-time on this open source project, but they're community funded. And that's really cool. And I'd like to see that a lot. I'd like to see more of it at the bigger tiers, though. I really would.
Fair enough. Well, there is a call at the end of this article that if you are running or involved in an open source project that is using an OSI approved license, you can apply for credits, not money, credits from AWS to receive some support in that way. So yeah, there we go. AWS reaffirming its commitment to open source. Before we wrap up, you mentioned, Tangara, the community day, AWS Community Day in Tunisia. So I'm interested just to hear a little bit about that and how that went and what sort of things were going on there.
Well, actually, yesterday, which was the second edition of AWS Community Day. So last year it was about in summer, which is the first edition, and yesterday it was the second edition. So we had the opportunity to meet some AWS ex-AWS employees like Mr. Osama Shilly and some other doctors that have been in the field in quite a while, and they actually made the good presentations and statements. We actually, as I said, talked about the security issues, and we mentioned briefly about the Australian fintech breach, about the leaky bucket, and then we moved on to some of the LLM and AI development that for practically the audience was a bit behind the undergraduate level or the engineering undergraduate, so they were fresh students. We had a foundation workshop about LLM and AI, and it was wonderful experience. Practically the whole day was a good opportunity for networking and having a variety of fields to expand and know a lot about. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds good, and an excellent use of your time. So yeah, I look forward to hearing about future editions of Community Day in Tunisia. Have you been to a Community Day, John? I've not actually been to one
I
yet.
haven't. No, I haven't. It's the UK doesn't have huge numbers of them because we have the summit, which is at the end of this month, which we're going to, which is great. We have ComSum, which is the community summit, which is every October or so, I want to say, late September, something like that, up in Manchester. There is now an AWS North Community Summit, Community Day, sorry, which is going to be up in Newcastle, run by, or organised by, I think, Lee Gilmore, serverless hero.
Mhm.
And I'm debating going up to that one, but from the south of England up to Newcastle is a bit of a faff to get up there.
Yeah.
So my inclination is to submit a talk, and if they accept a talk, worry about how I'm going to get there afterwards.
Yeah, Newcastle is a long way.
Long way, yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, on that note, we have reached the end of our time for season 4, episode 14 of Logicast. I apologize to any listeners and viewers for technical issues, both on my part and on Tangara's part as well, in the middle of the episode. But we are professionals here, and we soldiered on, and we got from the beginning through the middle all the way to the end, as we always do. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you, John, as always, for sharing your insights. Thank you, Tangara, for joining us today and sharing your insights from Tunisia, and having the honor of being our first Tunisian guest on Logicast. So it was really great to meet you and to hear your insights about AWS. If you've enjoyed the podcast, you're welcome. If you've enjoyed the podcast, we are available from wherever you download your podcasts. And if you'd like to see what we look like when we're freezing because our internet connections are not working properly, then you can see all of that going on our YouTube channel. We'll be back next week with another episode of Logicast for you. Until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.